high above the bustling streets of Chicago's Loop, where the L trains rumbled and taxis honked in a chaotic urban symphony. The sleek glass spire of Horizon Tower pierced the overcast sky. On the 42nd floor, Nexus Tech's headquarters buzzed with the frenetic energy of a tech company on the cusp of a breakthrough or a breakdown. Michael Reynolds, the 38-year-old CEO, sat at his polished mahogany desk. His tie loosened, his dark hair slightly disheveled from running his hands through it one too many times. The glow of his triple monitors cast sharp shadows across his face, illuminating the furrow in his brow as he stared at a spreadsheet that refused to make sense. Numbers danced in disarray. Revenue projections for their new AI-driven app were off by millions, and the product launch was already delayed by a week due to a glitch in the algorithm. His inbox pinged relentlessly. Each notification, a fresh jab at his nerves. Urgent emails from investors, a missed call from the lead developer, and a curt message from the marketing team about a botched ad campaign. Michael leaned back in his leather chair, the city's skyline sprawling before him through floor-to-ceiling windows, its twinkling lights a stark contrast to the storm brewing in his office. He rubbed his temples, trying to shake the nagging feeling that today was spiraling out of control. The day had started badly and only gotten worse. A 9 a.m. meeting with the board had been rescheduled twice, throwing his entire schedule into chaos. The lead engineer had called in sick, leaving a junior team member to fumble through a critical demo that crashed spectacularly in front of potential partners. And then there was the contract, the one that had landed on his desk just yesterday like a gift from the heavens. Apex Solutions, a shadowy firm Michael had never dealt with before, had proposed a $10 million partnership to integrate Nexus Tech's AI platform into their global supply chain network. The terms were almost too perfect: generous upfront payments, minimal oversight, and a promise of exponential growth. Michael had spent years navigating the cutthroat tech world, and he knew that deals this clean were rare. Too rare. He flipped through the contract again, its crisp pages heavy with legalese. Something about it gnawed at him, the vague wording, the oddly specific deadlines, the insistence on signing by tomorrow. He'd asked his legal team to review it, but their initial feedback was delayed, buried under the same chaos that seemed to engulf everything today. Michael glanced at his watch, 7:45 p.m. The office was nearly empty, the usual hum of keyboards and chatter replaced by an eerie quiet, broken only by the distant hum of the city below. Down the hall, Sarah Carter pushed a cleaning cart through the sleek corridors of Nexus Tech. At 34, she was a single mother who had worked the evening shift at Horizon Tower for 3 years, her steady hands wielding a mop with the precision of a craftsman. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her navy uniform was slightly wrinkled from a long day. Sarah loved the routine of her job, the predictability of it, the way it let her provide for her daughter Lily, without the unpredictability of her old life. Tonight, though, she wasn't alone. Lily, her 8-year-old, trailed behind her, clutching a worn backpack with a unicorn patch. Sarah didn't like bringing Lily to work, but her usual babysitter had canceled, and leaving her alone in their small apartment in Pilsen wasn't an option. Lily, however, was thrilled. To her, Horizon Tower was a playground of wonders, shiny glass walls, elevators that zoomed to the sky, and offices filled with blinking gadgets that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie. She skipped alongside the cart, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, her brown eyes wide with curiosity. "Mom, can I try the big chair again?" She whispered, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. Sarah sighed, a mix of exhaustion and affection. "Just don't touch anything important." "Okay," she said, her tone firm but warm. Back in Michael's office, the chaos showed no signs of slowing. He opened an email from Apex Solutions representative Greg Harlan marked urgent in bold red letters. Mr. Reynolds, we need your signature by 9 a.m. tomorrow to finalize the partnership. Time is critical. Please confirm receipt. Michael's jaw tightened. The pushiness grated on him, but the deal's potential was hard to ignore. Nexus Tech was at a tipping point. Another year of stagnant growth could sink them, especially with competitors like Quantum Dynamics breathing down their necks. He leaned forward, scrolling through the contract on his screen, his eyes scanning for anything he might have missed. A clause about third-party disbursements caught his attention, vague, almost deliberately so. He made a mental note to flag it for the legal team, but his thoughts were interrupted by another ping. This time it was a voicemail notification. He hit play, and Greg Harlan's voice filled the room, smooth but edged with impatience. Michael, it's Greg. I left the signed contract on your desk. We're counting on you to move fast. Don't let this slip away. The message cut off abruptly, leaving an uneasy silence. Michael glanced at the contract on his desk, its pristine folder now slightly creased from his earlier handling. Something felt off, but he couldn't pin it down. Meanwhile, Lily had slipped away from her mother's side, her curiosity pulling her toward the glowing lights of Michael's office. Sarah was busy scrubbing a conference room table, her back turned oblivious to her daughter's wandering. Lily pushed open the heavy glass door, her small frame barely registering against its weight. The office was a wonderland to her, a massive desk, a wall of screens, and a chair that spun in circles. She climbed onto the chair, giggling as it swiveled her backpack, sliding to the floor. The desk was a treasure trove: pens, a shiny stapler, and a stack of papers with numbers and words she didn't understand. She picked up a pen, pretending to sign her name in the air like she'd seen in movies. Lily Carter, CEO, she whispered, grinning. Her eyes landed on the contract folder, its bold Apex Solutions logo catching her attention. She flipped it open, mimicking an adult's serious frown, though the dense text meant nothing to her. The phone on the desk blinked red and she froze, glancing at the door. No one was coming. She reached for it, then hesitated. What if it was important? What if it was like the games she played, where she was the boss of a big company? Before she could overthink it, the voicemail played again automatically. Greg Harlan's voice booming through the speaker. Don't let this slip away, it said, and Lily's eyes widened. She didn't know what it meant, but it sounded like a secret mission. She leaned closer to the desk, her small hands hovering over the contract, as if she could unravel its mysteries just by staring. Outside, Chicago's lights flickered, and the weight of the day pressed heavier on Michael's shoulders, unaware that a small, curious girl was about to stumble into the heart of his dilemma. The night had settled over Chicago, transforming the city's skyline into a mosaic of twinkling lights that reflected off the glass walls of Horizon Tower. Inside Michael Reynolds' office on the 42nd floor of Nexus Tech, the air was thick with tension, though the room itself was a study in modern elegance, sleek furniture, glowing monitors, and a panoramic view of the Loop's glittering expanse. Michael sat hunched over his desk, his eyes flicking between the Apex Solutions contract and an email thread that had grown increasingly cryptic. The contract's promises of a $10 million partnership seemed to shimmer with opportunity, but its ambiguities, vague clauses about fund allocations, and an unusually tight deadline gnawed at his instincts. He'd built Nexus Tech from a scrappy startup into a contender in Chicago's tech scene, and he hadn't done it by ignoring red flags. Yet the pressure was mounting, investors were restless, the product launch was faltering, and his team was stretched thin. He sipped a lukewarm coffee, the bitter taste mirroring his mood, and muttered to himself, "This deal better be worth the headache." The office was quiet, save for the faint hum of air conditioning and the distant clatter of a cleaning cart echoing down the hall. Unbeknownst to Michael Lily Carter, the 8-year-old daughter of the janitor, Sarah Carter, had claimed his office as her temporary kingdom. Lily, with her messy ponytail and a backpack slung carelessly on the floor, was perched in Michael's oversized leather chair, spinning slowly and giggling at the dizzying motion. The chair was a throne in her eyes, and the sprawling desk before her was a command center straight out of her favorite sci-fi cartoons. She wore a pair of Sarah's oversized yellow rubber gloves, the fingers comically long flapping as she waved her hands like a conductor. "I'm the boss now," she whispered, her voice a mix of glee and mischief. The desk was littered with fascinating objects. A sleek fountain pen, a stress ball shaped like a circuit board, and the Apex Solutions contract folder slightly askew from her earlier exploration. Lily's eyes sparkled as she picked up the pen, pretending to sign imaginary deals, her small frame dwarfed by the desk's grandeur. Outside, the Chicago River glimmered under the city lights, but Lily's world was this office, a playground of endless possibilities. Sarah, meanwhile, was down the hall wiping down a glass conference table with methodical precision. Her cleaning cart was stocked with supplies, and her movements were practiced almost meditative. She glanced at her watch, 8:15 p.m., and sighed. Bringing Lily to work wasn't ideal, but the alternative was leaving her alone in their cramped apartment, and Sarah's protective instincts wouldn't allow it. She trusted Lily to stay out of trouble, but the girl's boundless curiosity often led her into unexpected places. Sarah paused, listening for Lily's usual chatter or the squeak of her sneakers, but heard nothing. "Lily," she called softly, her voice swallowed by the empty corridor. A faint giggle drifted from Michael's office, and Sarah relaxed slightly, assuming her daughter was playing her usual games. She returned to her work, unaware that Lily was about to stumble into something far bigger than a game. Back in the office, Lily's attention shifted to the blinking red light on Michael's desk phone. It had been flashing since she'd arrived, each pulse, like a beacon calling her to adventure. She hesitated, remembering her mother's rule about not touching important things, but the temptation was too strong. The phone was sleek, with buttons that looked like they belonged on a spaceship. She reached out her yellow-gloved hand, hovering, then pressed the speaker button. The room filled with the sharp ring of an incoming call, startling her. She froze, glancing at the door, but no one came. The ringing stopped, and a man's voice, smooth but edged with impatience, crackled through the speaker. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Greg Harlan from Apex Solutions. I need to confirm you've reviewed the contract. We're on a tight timeline. Call me back immediately." Lily's eyes widened. This was like the movies, secret calls, urgent messages. She giggled, then without thinking pressed the button to return the call. The line connected, and Greg's voice came through again, sharper this time. "Reynolds, is that you? We need to move on this how." Lily, undeterred by the gruff tone, leaned closer to the phone. Hi, this isn't Mr. Reynolds. I'm Lily. Who are you?" There was a long pause, followed by a huff of annoyance. Kid put an adult on the phone. This is important. But Lily, caught up in her role as boss, wasn't fazed. "Why is it so important? What's the contract thingy?" she asked, her voice bright with curiosity. Greg's tone grew terser. "Look, kid, this is business. Tell Reynolds to sign the deal tonight. It's worth millions." Lily tilted her head, twirling the phone cord around her gloved finger. Millions, like a million candies. Why's it gotta be tonight? Can't it wait till tomorrow? Her questions were simple, innocent, but they hit like tiny darts. Greg's patience frayed. "It's time-sensitive, okay? The funds need to be wired by morning or the deal's off. Just tell him to sign it." Michael, who had stepped out to grab a file from the adjacent conference room, returned just as Lily's conversation grew animated. He paused in the doorway, his fatigue momentarily replaced by confusion. A child's voice, bright inquisitive, filled his office, mingling with Greg Harlan's increasingly agitated responses. Michael's first instinct was to intervene, but something made him hold back. He stepped quietly inside, closing the door behind him, and listened. Lily, oblivious to his presence, pressed on. "But why's it gotta be so fast? My mom says rushing's bad for important stuff. What's in the contract anyway? Is it for something cool like robots?" Greg's voice cracked with frustration. "It's complicated, kid. There's a clause for fund transfers. Look, just get Reynolds." Lily scrunched her nose. "Fund transfers. Like moving money to where my piggy bank doesn't move money that fast." Michael's ears pricked up. Fund transfers. That vague clause in the contract. He edged closer, his heart rate ticking up. Greg, clearly losing his cool, snapped. "The money goes to a secure account, all right. It's standard. The projections are solid. $10 million up front, split across accounts." "Stop asking questions." Lily, undaunted, giggled. "Accounts. Like more than one. That sounds funny. Who gets the money?" Michael's blood ran cold. Greg's response was too quick, too defensive. "It's business, kid, offshore accounts for tax purposes. Just tell Reynolds to sign." The words offshore accounts hit Michael like a punch. The contract hadn't mentioned offshore accounts, only third-party disbursements. He grabbed a pen and scribbled the phrase on a notepad, his mind racing. Lily, still playing her game, pressed further. "Offshore, like on a boat." "That's weird for money." Greg's voice faltered, and in his frustration he let slip. "It's a standard escrow setup, but the primary account's in the Caymans. Look kid enough?" Michael's pen froze. The Caymans, a classic red flag for shady deals. He stepped forward, his shadow falling across the desk. Lily turned her eyes wide as she saw Michael. "Oh, hi, I'm helping," she chirped, waving her gloved hand. Michael, his face a mix of shock and gratitude, gently took the phone. "Greg, it's Michael Reynolds. We need to talk." His voice was calm, but his mind was a storm. Lily's innocent questions had peeled back a layer of the Apex Solutions deal, exposing cracks Michael hadn't seen. He glanced at the contract on his desk, its pristine pages now looking like a trap. Lily, unaware of the gravity of her actions, slid off the chair and grabbed her backpack. "I answered the phone like a boss," she whispered proudly. Michael managed a faint smile, his thoughts already racing toward the next steps. Outside, Chicago's skyline glowed indifferent to the drama unfolding in the quiet office where a child's curiosity had just shifted the course of a multi-million-dollar deal. The morning sun spilled through the towering windows of Horizon Tower, casting long golden streaks across the polished floors of Nexus Tech's 42nd floor headquarters in Chicago's Loop. Michael Reynolds stood in the boardroom, his sleeves rolled up a whiteboard behind him, scrawled with frantic notes. Apex Solutions, offshore accounts, Cayman Islands, circled in red marker. The air buzzed with urgency as his core team legal counsel, Rachel Nguyen CFO David Patel, and lead developer Emma Clark huddled around a conference table littered with coffee cups and laptops. The Apex Solutions contract, once a beacon of promise, now lay dissected under their scrutiny, its pages marked with sticky notes and highlighters. Michael's jaw was set, his eyes sharp with the clarity that comes after a sleepless night. Lily Carter's accidental phone call the previous evening had cracked open a Pandora's box, and Michael was determined to uncover every hidden corner of the deal. The words offshore accounts echoed in his mind, a red flag that had haunted him since a near-disastrous deal early in his career. a memory that now fueled his resolve. Outside Chicago's skyline shimmered the Willis Tower standing sentinel. But inside, the room felt like a war zone with the fate of Nexus Tech hanging in the balance. Michael paced, his voice steady but intense. "Rachel, what did you find on Apex Solutions?" Rachel, a sharp-eyed attorney with a knack for spotting loopholes, tapped her tablet. "Their corporate filings are thin. Registered in Delaware, but their operational address is a P.O. box in Miami. No physical office, no employee records. The CEO, Greg Harlan, has a LinkedIn profile, but it's bare, created 6 months ago, no connections beyond a few generic endorsements." David, the CFO, chimed in, his brow furrowed. "The financials in the contract don't add up. The $10 million up front is split across 3 accounts, one of which is flagged as a Cayman Islands trust. The projections they provided inflated by at least 30%. I ran the numbers through our analytics tool. It's like they cherry-picked data to make it look irresistible." Emma, the developer, leaned forward, her laptop open to a hacked-together script. "I did some digging on their domain. Apex Solutions.com was registered 3 months ago, and the servers hosted in Eastern Europe. Shady for a supposed global firm." Michael stopped pacing, his hand gripping the back of a chair. "So we're dealing with a shell company. This deal's a trap." The realization hit like a cold wave, but it wasn't Michael's first brush with deception. 10 years ago, as a young entrepreneur, he'd nearly signed a partnership that promised to fund his first startup, only to discover it was a front for funneling money into untraceable accounts. The fallout had cost him his company, and a year of rebuilding his reputation. The memory flashed vividly: late nights in a cramped office, poring over contracts, the sting of betrayal, when the truth emerged. Now standing in Nexus Tech's boardroom, he felt that same gut twist. But he was no longer naive. "We need hard evidence," he said. "Rachel, pull every public record on Apex. David, cross-check their financials against industry benchmarks. Emma, see if you can trace their server activity, any emails, any logins." The team nodded, diving into their tasks with a shared sense of purpose. Michael glanced at the contract again, its pristine folder now a symbol of deceit. A forged signature on the last page caught his eye, a detail he'd overlooked in the chaos. It was sloppy, almost arrogant, as if Apex assumed he wouldn't notice. Meanwhile, across the office, Sarah Carter was finishing her morning cleaning rounds. The previous night's events lingered in her mind, Lily's adventure in Michael's office. The phone call, her own quiet panic, when she realized her daughter had wandered off. Sarah had found Lily spinning in the CEO's chair, babbling about helping the boss. And though she'd scolded her gently, she couldn't shake the fear of repercussions. Nexus Tech was a good job, steady with benefits she couldn't afford to lose. As she polished a glass door, Lily sat nearby on a bench, swinging her legs, her unicorn backpack beside her. "Mom, did I do something bad last night?" Lily asked, her voice small. Sarah knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "No, sweetie. You just need to stay close next time. That office isn't a playground." But Lily's eyes sparkled with defiance. "I was a boss. I talked to a man on the phone and he sounded mad. But I asked lots of questions." Sarah's heart sank. She hadn't heard the details of the call, but the idea of Lily meddling in corporate affairs made her stomach churn. "Just don't touch the phones again." "Okay," she said, forcing a smile. Unbeknownst to Sarah, Lily's curiosity was far from sated. During a break, she wandered toward the open-plan workspace, where junior employees tapped away at their keyboards. The office was alive with activity developers, debugging code marketers, tweaking ad copy, the hum of a 3D printer in the corner spitting out a prototype. Lily's eyes landed on Emma Clark, who was taking a break sipping a soda and scrolling through code on her laptop. Emma, with her bright purple streak in her hair and a friendly grin, was the kind of person who didn't mind a kid hanging around. "Hey, kiddo," Emma said, noticing Lily's curious stare. "You like computers?" Lily nodded vigorously. "I want to make games, like with robots and spaceships." Emma laughed, pulling up a simple coding tutorial on her screen. "Check this out. It's Python. You can make a little animation." "Want to try?" Lily's face lit up, and she climbed onto a chair beside Emma, her small fingers tapping the keyboard as Emma guided her through a basic program to make a pixelated star blink. The interaction was a bright spot in Lily's day, a spark that fueled her dream of one day building something cool, like the gadgets at Nexus Tech. Back in the boardroom, Michael's investigation was gaining momentum. Rachel had uncovered a trail of shell companies linked to Apex Solutions, each with minimal records and suspicious addresses. David's analysis revealed that the contract's financial projections were based on fabricated data numbers lifted from unrelated industries cobbled together to look convincing. Emma's server trace hit pay dirt, an email exchange between Greg Harlan and an unknown party discussing rerouting funds once the contract was signed. The email was encrypted, but Emma's script cracked enough to reveal the phrase, "Clean transfer, no traces." Michael's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a bad deal, it was a deliberate scam designed to siphon millions from Nexus Tech into untraceable accounts. He called an emergency meeting with the board, presenting the evidence. "We're pulling the plug," he said, his voice firm. "No signature, no deal. And we're reporting Apex to the SEC." The board agreed, and Michael drafted a formal rejection to Greg Harlan, his fingers flying across the keyboard with a mix of relief and fury. As the day wound down, Sarah finished her shift, unaware of the storm her daughter had inadvertently helped avert. She found Lily with Emma, who was showing her how to change the star's color in the coding tutorial. "She's a natural," Emma said, winking at Sarah. "Might have a future coder here." Sarah smiled, her earlier worries easing slightly. She took Lily's hand, leading her toward the elevator. "Time to go, kiddo!" Lily clutched a printout of her blinking star code, beaming with pride. "I helped today, didn't I, Mom?" she asked. Sarah, still in the dark about the contract, nodded absently. "Sure, sweetie. You're always helping." As they stepped into the elevator, the doors closing on the bustling office, Michael sat at his desk, staring at the now cancelled contract. The weight of the day lifted slightly, replaced by a strange gratitude for the small gloved hands that had unknowingly tipped the scales. Outside, Chicago's streets pulsed with life, the city oblivious to the quiet victory unfolding in the tower above. The late afternoon sun bathed Chicago's Loop in a warm, golden glow, its light filtering through the tall windows of Nexus Tech's community room on the 42nd floor of Horizon Tower. Unlike the sleek, high-tech boardroom or Michael Reynolds's imposing office, this space was cozy, with plush armchairs, a long wooden table scattered with snacks, and a wall adorned with employee photos and handwritten thank-you notes. Outside, the city's autumn hues, reds and oranges from the trees lining Michigan Avenue, added a vibrant backdrop to the gathering. Michael stood at the front of the room, his usual sharp suit replaced by a more relaxed sweater, his expression a mix of gratitude and determination. The entire Nexus Tech staff, from developers to administrative assistants, filled the room, their chatter fading as Michael cleared his throat. On a small table beside him sat a brightly wrapped box and a framed certificate, both destined for an unexpected hero. Sarah Carter stood near the back, her cleaning uniform neatly pressed, her hands nervously clasped, as she watched her 8-year-old daughter Lily fidget beside her, clutching her unicorn backpack. The room buzzed with curiosity. Michael's email had promised an important announcement, and the staff sensed something big. Michael raised a hand, silencing the room. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady but warm. "This week, Nexus Tech faced a crisis, one that could have cost us millions, and jeoparded have put us in a tough spot. But we're standing here today because of an unlikely ally, someone who reminded us that sometimes the simplest questions can uncover the biggest truths." He paused, scanning the room, his eyes landing on Lily, who was swinging her legs under her chair, oblivious to the spotlight about to shine on her. The staff exchanged puzzled glances, some whispering about the Apex Solutions deal, which had been the subject of office gossip since Michael's abrupt cancellation of the contract. He continued, "2 nights ago, a phone call in my office changed everything, and the person who answered that call wasn't me, it was Lily Carter." A murmur rippled through the crowd, heads turning toward the small girl in the back, who looked up wide-eyed as her mother's face flushed with surprise. Michael recounted the story, his tone a mix of awe and amusement. He described the chaotic day, the botched product launch, the suspicious $10 million contract from Apex Solutions, and his own nagging doubts about its too perfect terms. He explained how Lily, playing boss in his office, had picked up a call from Greg Harlan, the Apex representative, and peppered him with innocent questions. Why so fast? Where's the money going? Those questions, Michael said, had tripped Harlan up, revealing details about offshore accounts and fabricated financials that hadn't been in the contract. Lily didn't know she was unraveling a scam. Michael said, a smile breaking through. She was just being herself. Curious, honest, unafraid to ask, "Why?" And that's what saved us. The room erupted in applause, and Lily, still processing her sudden fame, grinned shyly, hiding behind her mother's arm. Sarah's eyes glistened, a mix of pride and disbelief washing over her. Michael gestured toward the table. "Lily, come up here." The crowd parted as Lily, her sneakers squeaking on the floor, made her way to the front, her yellow-gloved hands from that night now replaced by a bright blue sweatshirt. Michael knelt to her level, holding up the framed certificate. It read, "Lily Carter Jr., Hero of Nexus Tech for Courage and Curiosity." The staff cheered again, some snapping photos, as Lily's face lit up. "This is for you," Michael said, handing her the certificate. "And this," he added, passing her the wrapped box, "is to help you keep asking questions." Lily tore open the package, revealing a kid-friendly coding kit with a colorful manual and a small robot that could be programmed to move. "It's for making robots," she exclaimed, hugging the box, as the room laughed warmly. Sarah, still at the back, wiped a tear, her heart swelling at the sight of her daughter being celebrated in a world so far from their own. The moment wasn't just about Lily, though. Michael stood addressing the staff again. "This isn't just a feel-good story," he said, his tone shifting to one of conviction. "Lily's questions reminded me of something we've lost in the grind of deadlines and deals, the power of honesty. We get caught up in numbers, projections, pressure, and we stop asking the simple whys that cut through the noise. That stops today." He announced a new initiative. Nexus Tech would hold monthly open question forums where every employee, from interns to executives, could ask anything about projects, finances, even leadership decisions without fear of judgment. If an 8-year-old can save us by asking, "Why?" imagine what we can do when we all do it, he said, earning nods and murmurs of agreement. The initiative, he added, would be called Lily's Line, a nod to the girl who'd sparked it. Lily beamed, clutching her certificate, unaware of the legacy she'd just inspired. As the meeting wrapped up, employees crowded around Lily, offering high fives and asking about her robot kit. "Emma Clark." The developer, who'd shown Lily a coding tutorial the day before, knelt beside her. "You're gonna build something awesome with that kit, right?" she said, ruffling Lily's hair. Lily nodded vigorously. "I'm gonna make a robot that flies, and maybe talks." Emma laughed, promising to help her debug her first program. Sarah watched her earlier worries about Lily's antics replaced by a quiet pride. She'd always seen her daughter's curiosity as a handful, but now it felt like a gift. As she and Lily left the community room, Sarah squeezed her hand. "You did good, kiddo," she whispered. Lily looked up, her eyes bright. "Mom, can I come to work with you every day?" Sarah chuckled, shaking her head. "Let's not push our luck." Back in his office, Michael sat at his desk, the now discarded Apex Solutions contract tucked away in a drawer, a reminder of a bullet dodged. He glanced at a photo on his desk, him and his own daughter Sophie, who was about Lily's age but lived with her mother in Boston. The photo stirred a pang of guilt. His long hours at Nexus Tech had strained that relationship. Lily's actions had hit him deeper than he'd expected, not just as a CEO, but as a father. He picked up his phone and typed a quick message to Sophie. "Hey, kiddo, let's video chat this weekend. I miss you." He hit send, then leaned back, gazing at Chicago's skyline, its autumn colors fading into dusk. The city moved on, indifferent, to the small victory in Horizon Tower. But for Michael, the lesson was clear. Truth often hides in plain sight, waiting for someone brave or innocent enough to ask the right question. The next day, a small plaque appeared outside the community room, engraved with Lily's line, "Where questions find answers." Employees passing by smiled, some joking that their best auditor was an 8-year-old with a reconnect for chaos. Lily, back at school, showed her certificate to her classmates, spinning tales of her secret mission at the big tower. Her teacher, amused, encouraged her to write a story about it, sparking Lily's dream of one day coding her own adventure game. At Nexus Tech, the culture began to shift. Meetings grew more open, questions flowed freely, and the staff felt a renewed sense of trust. The lesson wasn't just for the company, though. It was a reminder for everyone in a world of complexity and ambition. The simplest questions asked with honesty can light the way to truth. And sometimes, those questions come from the smallest voices in the most unexpected places, like a girl in yellow gloves answering a phone in a skyscraper above Chicago's restless streets.